got a lot to get to. You've put out a couple videos over the last couple weeks that were really interesting, a lot of fun to watch. If you are a super fan of Penn State football, I highly recommend them. They're fantastic. The first one, Coach, was on Drew Aller. Let's start with that one. Last season, you and I had a conversation about Drew Aller, mostly positive, but if you had one criticism of him then, it was that he would seem to get a little careless with his footwork. What are you seeing on this year's tape? Has he cleaned any of that up?
You can tell that his consistency and efficiencies has definitely cleaned up. They talk about how, if your footwork is consistent, then your arm work is going to be consistent. And I feel like there's really a big one I showed you early in the video. Just a simple now smoke screen that he shot off on the left side, and the exact same throw he shot off last year that he overthrew. That consistent footwork has led him to be a little more successful in his throws. And, for the most part, I'd say that those freshman mistakes that he made last year as being coming off the bench, that in the first couple of games, he hasn't made those mistakes.
Coach, there's a lot of talk among Penn State fans about not seeing the big play. We'll get to the running game in that issue also. But with the passing game, here we saw this big, strong guy coming in. We imagine the ball being chucked all over the field. But instead, what we're seeing is what appears to be a very patient Drew Aller. That, to me, appears like the work of a mature quarterback, not a young guy who's starting for the first time.
Yeah, it takes a lot for a quarterback, especially a big, strong-armed kid that likes to just chuck it, to be able to go through his progressions and check down to the easy routes. Because, most of those guys want that highlight reel throw. Most quarterbacks do. I mean, heck, my quarterbacks do right now, and have to drill in their head, hey, throw the flat. It's not a bad route, And so he's done a really good job with that. I think the other thing you got to look at is if you go back and look, especially against like Delaware, where you think you're going to see a lot of shot plays. Delaware played at safeties at 12 to 15 yards deep to take away those deep shots. With the fear of the speed out wide with Penn State and the big arm ability of Aller, I think that what they did was they really, a lot of teams are taking this huge umbrella over the top and keeping everything in front so there is no big plays, And so, for him to go through, I think I put it in the video of how he went through 4 reads in one play, just boom, 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 boom. That's hard to do. That's hard to do for any quarterback, especially a kid who's 19 years old who, wants to sling it, who had a lot of success in high school slinging it. So I was really impressed. I'm really impressed with his patience. That's the makings of something great.
One last note on Drew Aller, and this is going back to the video, and I think you alluded to this earlier. They played a wide receiver screen. The accuracy isn't just about making the completion. It's where you complete the ball to the receiver. I think in that situation, it was to his lead shoulder, Coach.
Yeah, so when you throw those smoke screens, you want to put your receiver in a good situation, right? So I want to be able to lead my receiver to where he's got to go. And so that receiver's, he's stuttering his steps. He's going to pop his chest up, and it's Aller's job to lead that ball to the receiver so that as he catches the ball, he can roll into his vertical placement. And I think that, last year he would throw it high, he'd throw it back shoulder, and that makes the receiver have to stop, change directions, and moved back over that way. I think that as a maturing quarterback, to be able to throw that ball to the front side shoulder, something very minute, right? Something small that people don't really think about. Those are big deals. And that's the difference between a 2-yard gain and a 7-yard gain.
It definitely is. All right, Coach, let's move on to the running game. Very similar to the passing game that we're not seeing the big plays. We know there are 2 really good running backs there, Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. And through 2 games, I don't think either one of them has a run beyond 20 yards. What did you see watching that? What did you see as the cause of that no big runs?
I think a lot of it goes back to, and to give props to the defenses that they've seen this year, a couple things you got to look at. Number one, you've got a team like, Delaware, right? So they're going to umbrella you. They're going to have guys over the top. They want to keep everything in front because they know athletically they can't keep up, right? If somebody breaks the line, it's gone. There's nothing they can do at this point. And so that's part of it. But, I'm really sadly disappointed with the the ability of the receivers and their blocking. I'm struggling with it. I think that, that's been something that I'm sure has been addressed in meeting rooms by the receivers coach. They always say the difference between a 10-yard gain and a 50-yard gain is the receivers blocking safeties and corners. And so you're seeing a lot of the offensive line dominating at the point of attack, but receivers letting up corners and safeties for free plays. And, I think that causes the difference between those big plays. So I think you've got a combination of things. You've got defenses that are playing over the top, trying to keep everything in front. And then you've got receiver blocking that's not nearly what it probably should be. You know what I mean?
Yeah, in your tape, you demonstrated a few times and a couple times to name some names. Number 6 is Trey Wallace, and the difference is you getting these running backs, especially like Nick Singleton, you are getting him into the secondary. You're thinking, boy, it's just one more block, just one more, and you add 40 or 50 more yards onto the run.
Absolutely. And I think, those guys can coach at Penn State. And so I'm sure that has been addressed in meetings. If a guy like me who, breaks down the film and not nearly as a detailed version as their coaches do, knowing the game plan, I'm sure that meeting room has been quite volatile, if you will say that, to try to eliminate that, because that's truly game-changing. Those are game-changing plays that should have been happening that weren't.
While I've got you, one other topic I wanted to bring up to you, especially as we're talking about things on the offensive side of the football, and Mike Yurcich, he went from the sideline last season, now he's up in the box, and on the surface, you would have thought a year ago he's talking with he's got a 6-year senior as a quarterback. You would think that's a guy who wouldn't need the help on the sidelines, where this year you have the first-year starter in Drew Aller, and he chooses to go up to the press box. What did that tell you?
Being in the booth and looking down at the game is like looking at a video game, for those of you guys that have ever played a video game. And it's a lot easier to see the broad spectrum. And I think that truly that is what he's looking for. I think there's a lot more passing, a lot more true drop back with Drew. Maybe less RPO game, more, true progression game. And you can see that. You can also see the formation shifting and motioning that they're getting themselves into. A lot of creating the same look with a different idea behind it. But I can tell you that as a coach, you disassociate yourself emotionally in the booth and you see the bigger picture, if that makes sense.